Welcome to Optily Radio, your regular 30-minute dose of everything you need to accelerate your e-commerce marketing success.
Welcome to Optily Radio. I'm your host, Nina White. On this show, we've been talking a lot about ways to get people to your e-commerce site, how to optimize your own website, and how to handle data from multiple sources. What we haven't really touched on too much is the giant of e-commerce, the company almost synonymous with the whole industry itself. And that, of course, is Amazon. In today's episode, we'll talk all about Jeff Bezos' baby, from how to win that coveted buy box spot on the product page, to strategies you can use to compete in the fierce ad auction across the Amazon network. So, let's dive right into some Amazon best practices. Today's guest is Tom Baker, founder of FordeBaker, a full-service Amazon marketing and operations agency, helping businesses with creating listings, improving SEO, advertising, and much more. Prior to starting the agency, Tom was the head of marketing for an emerging STEM toy brand at Technology Will Save Us, and has years of experience working in marketing for the gaming industry at Betway, Boyle Sports, Ladbrokes, and bwin. And joining us once again from the Optily team, we have our co-founder and chief product officer, Keith O'Reilly. Keith is an award-winning product innovator and has over 20 years of experience in product development and advertising across online, offline, in-store, and social media. So welcome to the show, Tom and Keith.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So the sun is out, people are starting to go out in large numbers, and Jeff Bezos is flying off to space. Did either of you watch the Blue Horizons takeoff the other week?
I actually skipped it. We obviously track a lot of what Amazon are doing, but that's probably just slightly outside of our remit right now. We don't have any services related to rocket science.
Fair enough. It was a lot shorter than I was expecting. I thought they would at least, be up there for a little while. But it was like, nope, just up and down.
Yeah. I thought his speech was interesting as well, thanking his customers and employees. I went down very well, I'd imagine.
Yep.
There was no thank you for FordeBaker in there for what we've done, but
next trip.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Tom, how it is that you got into the world of Amazon and how you came to start FordeBaker?
Yeah, so I've been in sort of e-commerce and digital marketing for 10, 12 years, doing all sorts of roles, sort of classic things within SEO, PPC, conversion, but all to do with sort of website marketing. And then about 5 years ago, I started to work for that toy company that you mentioned earlier. And that was my first experience in product marketing. And at that time, Amazon was still kind of emerging as a kind of key sort of distribution channel. It was still very much your website and bricks and mortar retail. And Amazon is a kind of third to those two, if you like. But that enabled me to sort of immerse myself in it as it was sort of really starting to emerge. Obviously, it'd been around much longer than that, but as a sort of marketing platform, and that shift to kind of selling through marketplaces, it gave me the space and opportunity to learn in a startup environment where I kind of took on lots of responsibility and learned it all from sort of operations, content, marketing, everything. You kind of obviously have to be very hands-on. And that gave me the sort of immersion into everything to do with Amazon in the UK, Europe, and the US. And what I found through that was really enjoyed working on the Amazon platform, and it tested all of those skills that I'd learned previously, all the different kind of channels within e-commerce. But it was a really big learning curve, like really, really big learning curve. And there just wasn't any information out there and sort of the level of agency support that you would get with your more traditional digital channels. So it was a bit of a struggle, but you kind of learnt through it, made mistakes, learned from those mistakes, and then in the end it was very successful. But what I found was there's a real kind of gap for quality external support, consultancy and services. So that's why I created FordeBaker. It was to fill that gap. That's a very real need that I had as an in-house marketer for specialist support, and that's essentially why FordeBaker exists.
Awesome. Yeah, it can definitely be hard just kind of jumping into a new channel, especially one as competitive as Amazon. I mean, there's just so much there and so many brands that are just so well established. It can be pretty daunting for a newcomer. What are some of the things that you do when you bring on, a new client and they're just starting into things, you're trying to figure out what they could be doing better? What are some of the things that you look out for in your audit of their Amazon page? Some of the big red flags or some of the typical rookie mistakes that you often find?
Yeah, so when we take on a new client that's already selling on Amazon, it's usually because either their sales have plateaued or they've launched and then realized that the scale of the operation is just far too great for them to manage internally, either because just the amount of work that's required or the sort of the variety of things that you need to do. So all the skill sets that you need across logistics, operations, content, advertising, and so on. Like, no one person can do those kind of things, particularly not anymore as Amazon's become more and more sophisticated. So there's usually kind of two reasons why businesses are coming to us, and sort of our approach obviously reflect that kind of experience they've had to date. I think the things that we see, the classic things that we see where that are sort of holding back growth, are around the understanding of Amazon as a platform. So it's absolutely not a sort of set and forget digital shelf. Put your product there and people will buy it. It's just not the case. It's particularly not the case anymore, as advertising's become far more competitive on Amazon. It's essentially an integral part of selling product on Amazon. You essentially can't really achieve growth unless you are advertising. So there's a lot that goes into then thinking about, all right, okay, how am I going to actually get my product in front of the right user? And then how am I going to persuade that user to buy my product, not any of the other products around? So it's kind of, if kind of boil it down, it comes into two parts. One is the advertising side of it, and one is that sort of sales persuasion part of it. And where we always begin is with the sales persuasion part of it. So essentially that's, what is your sell-through rate? What's your conversion rates on Amazon? And when we do that audit, inevitably there's going to be some products that have relatively low conversion rates, and therefore that's where we're going to spend most of our time, sort of in that early stage, actually understanding why those products don't have a greater sell-through on Amazon. And so we can build out the foundations from great product listings, have a better sort of natural conversion rate, and then start to invest in advertising and so on and so forth. But when it comes down to the actual product page, I think the key things are, a lot of businesses, and particularly big brands, treat it as a catalog, not as a sort of point of sale. So the product is uploaded into the system. It has a sort of generic title and a few bullet points that describe it as you would kind of see in an old catalog. It's sort of very practical. There's not much sort of color to the language. There's no tone of voice. There's no attempt to sort of persuade the user, like, why am I buying this product and not another product? So that's the fundamental thing. That's where we see sort of the biggest opportunity for growth, is really thinking about, okay, this user's on Amazon, they're probably on their mobile device, they're probably doing something else at the same time. How am I going to capture their attention? And how am I going to really crystallize why my product is better than anything out there? What are the advantages that my product has that other products don't have? And how am I going to communicate that through the text, through images, and through the video on the product page? And how does that come together in a very clear narrative that's suited to the way that people kind of scroll through the product page, particularly on a mobile device? They don't go down in a nice linear pattern from title, images, and so on. They look at the title, then they look at the reviews, they'll jump down to the reviews, read the reviews, scroll back up again. So it's just understanding that as well. So another critical thing is understanding the actual user behavior on the page, as well as the user intent when they're on Amazon. They're there to buy something, so your language has to be very transactional as well. So just bringing together all of those elements, and that's what forms the sort of first part of any audit and optimization with a new client.
The reviews is a really interesting topic, I think, in and of itself. That must be a fascinating part to start.
It is. And so, yeah, that absolutely is sort of one of the big topics that new clients always ask, whether they're already selling on Amazon or whether they're completely new. I think part of it's because in the more general media, when the BBC or whatever talking about Amazon, it's usually because they're talking about fake reviews or something like that. And so there's this kind of bias in more sort of mainstream media as to what the sort of issues are with selling on Amazon. I would say, yeah, there are obviously lots of fake reviews out there. Amazon as a sort of huge entity,
Sure.
and the amount of products that are sold, there's going to be a certain proportion of those products that are that have fake reviews, and there are businesses that are manipulating the system to their advantage. We're seeing that at the moment. Amazon taking down a lot of big sellers, particularly from China, because they're very, very obviously manipulating reviews on a sort of industrial scale.
Yes.
So it's inevitable for brands see that in the news and think, wow, there must be some awful problem going on here. I think what we always say to brands is those things are completely outside of your control. So if Amazon's clamping down on reviews, or there's some fundamental problem with the system, there's not much you can really do about that. And actually, because it's outside of your control, it's not something you should necessarily worry too much about. Just focus on getting your reviews and thinking longer term. But don't try to use any of those sort of grey tactics.
Sure.
They don't work. They're either Amazon's algorithms are too smart, and they'll pick them up, and those reviews will get deleted. Or
Yes.
if you get away with it, you're building up a bigger problem for later down the line, and you will be a sort of candidate for being suspended from Amazon. So we always say think long term, think about what you can control within sort of the quality of the product, the way you're communicating to the customer, their experience when they open the box, the communication within the box. You obviously have to be careful about what you can and can't say when sort of talking about reviews and things like that. But there's obviously different ways that you can sort of encourage feedback on products. So it's just about working within the system, focusing on what you can control, and the features that Amazon do offer to collect genuine reviews, such as Amazon Vine. Focus on those things, and don't worry about these like big systematic things that are going on, because as I say, you can't control it. And at the end of the day, there's a lot to do with an Amazon. Like focus on things that you can control and that you can have an influence over.
I've seen increasing numbers of updated reviews where somebody might give a negative review and then the brand will engage and react, and often that experience completely changes the nature of the review.
Yeah, and so Amazon they're always playing around with how you can engage with those people that leave reviews. So they'll go through waves of sort of restricting that ability to talk as a brand to the customer, and sometimes they'll open it up again. Recently, they've opened up a new feature, sort of what's called buyer-seller messages, where you can contact people and discuss their feedback on the product. I think Amazon will get to a point where they almost have a CRM system for engaging with the customer, either on the platform, so on the consumer-facing part of the platform, or sort of in the back end when no one else can see it, and you've got almost like a messaging system. You can see bits of those kind of features starting to pop up, particularly sort of in the US. or new features tend to be in the US, and then they'll kind of expand that out elsewhere. So I expect to see some type of CRM system which will enable brands to engage with the customer. No ownership of the customer, no ownership of the data, but a communication channel which will enable brands to, give them an opportunity to talk to the customer, but also to engage with any objections or incorrect information or confusion about the product. Because at the end of the day, as long as you can trust brands to do that properly, that's a good thing for Amazon as well. Like reducing customer confusion means increased sales, and that's obviously what they want. So I do think Amazon is sort of settling down into a sort of more mature approach about giving brands a better ability to communicate with the customers, which fosters a better environment on the platform.
And then could you give us a sense or even an overview of the non-organic or paid media offerings to support the promotions of a brand or product?
Yeah. So
what are the formats and types and targeting, etc.?
Yeah. So so first and foremost, Amazon is absolutely pay to play. So there are very few instances where a business can sell on Amazon without having some sort of advertising strategy. There are obviously exceptions to that. So we have clients that are brands in their own right, and their customers expect to see the products on Amazon, but the brands don't necessarily want to invest huge amounts of money into advertising on Amazon to increase their market share on Amazon. So they're happy to just collect all of the sales that come, sort of brand driven sales, and they don't spend that much on advertising. And they do very well out of that because everyone just expects the product to be there. But for the vast majority of businesses, advertising is critical to that growth. The beauty of it is that you can use the advertising in different ways, no matter what your objectives are. So whether it is you're launching a new product and you've got to get it out in front of people to kind of start to build momentum, whether it's your kind of top line growth across all of your products, whether you're launching into a new country and you really need to give it a good go, or whether you're really optimizing towards sort of lifetime value and profit margin. So that's the beauty of Amazon. Lots of different sort of business objectives can be met with the platform as it is. So with advertising on Amazon, it comes down to classic search advertising. So you search for plant pot, and there's going to be a row of ads for different types of plant pots. There's going to be, in the search results, 3 different ad formats. So at the top, there'll be a thing called sponsored brands, which is a banner at the top. Then the more people will probably be more familiar with what's called sponsored product ads. So that's just the product image and title as an advert at the top. And then a more recent thing is sponsored video ads. So that would come further down the search results. It's a nice space for a video ad. They get excellent engagement rate and really good click-through rate, and often we'll see a better conversion rate off the back of a video ad as well. So within the search results, you've got those 3 different choices. Obviously, they're used for different objectives. I think the video ad, obviously, if you want to sort of create more awareness and more engagement with the product before people get to the product page, if you need to do that, then obviously that's an important thing to do. The sponsored product ads, very direct response. It's like, you know that keyword's going to pay off for you, so therefore you want to be in those that top row of ads, and it's that kind of very direct response. And again, that's the beauty of Amazon. Like, people are there to buy product, so as long as you're there at the right time, in the right space, with the right message on your product page as well, then you're going to see the sales from it. So they're the fundamental sort of ad formats, and then there's the Amazon DSP. So that's Amazon programmatic advertising. Not every business will use that. You need to have a bigger budget and a reason to have a bigger budget. But it's a very effective way to not only sort of increase product and brand awareness, but also the beauty of it is that you get all of the first party purchase data at your disposal. So there's a tremendous amount of audience targeting that can be created and segmented off that data. And that's something that, you know, very few other advertising platforms can offer. Like pretty much no one can really offer the same quality of purchase data that Amazon have, plus also the great content that you're advertising against. So whether that's on a Kindle tablet, Amazon Prime TV, any of the other Amazon-owned web properties, whether it's IMDb or Twitch, anything else like that, or any other publisher that's part of the DSP network. So you get the best of both worlds. You get great quality sort of audience through being able to deliver ads in good content, and then the quality of the first party data to really, really get to the audience that you want to get to. So the DSP is tremendously effective, really effective.
And must ads or do ads always terminate on the product page on Amazon? Or can you leverage them for off Amazon or off site?
Yeah, so with the Amazon DSP, then you can drive that to your own website. So that's, you know, you get all of that great sort of quality audience, and you can drive that to your website. You know, obviously it's something we encourage that, because ultimately it's about finding out what's the best customer journey for your type of customer. If it so happens that they prefer to buy off your website rather than Amazon, or at least start their purchase journey by going to your website and then wherever they buy from, it's whatever's effective and whatever's going to give you the best return. But that's the beauty of it. You can do either. It's exactly the same sort of setup. You're driving traffic to a different place. On Amazon, it will either go to your product page or to your storefront. So, for example, if you want to encourage people to browse through your product range, then you've got the storefront on Amazon as another option as well. So, yeah, there's lots of different opportunities there. But yeah, it's probably something people don't really realize actually, is that you can use the DSP to drive engagement and sales on your own website. And I think it's something that will become a more critical part of the kind of wider toolkit for a lot of website advertisers. Yeah.
That's great. That's super interesting. So you mentioned, that Amazon is definitely pay to play, and the DSP is definitely geared towards bigger budget companies. So what are some ways that a smaller, newer business is trying to, get into Amazon? How can they sort of get into ads, especially with the rising costs of the ads, but still be successful?
Yeah, that's the $100 million question. So but it's something that we're dealing with every day, and talking to our smaller clients about all of the time. You're right to say that there's a lot of pressure at the moment because of the rising in cost per clicks, just naturally as there's more businesses coming onto the platform, and those businesses tend to be bigger brands. It's bigger brands that are sort of catching up. They've got bigger budgets. They're happy to spend more to achieve those sales. So there's a lot of sort of pressure within the system. But the way that we approach that is to look at who is that single customer that product is designed for. So not what the brand is designed for, but what the product is designed for. Who is that particular customer, and what is their search behavior on Amazon? And so we start with that very, very tight niche and that tight sort of customer persona, target them, and build out from there. There's absolutely no point. If you're new to Amazon, relatively small, or your product's new, there's little brand awareness, there's no point trying to go far and wide with your advertising. But the beauty of Amazon is it's 1,000,000,001 little niches. The audience is so large, so many different people with so many different interests, you're going to find an audience for your product. It's then just a matter of obviously targeting them and then optimizing so that you're getting a return on that advertising. But we start very niche and then start to build out from there with sort of search advertising on Amazon. The other things that we're increasingly doing, is looking at what assets we can leverage outside of Amazon to bring customers in. So rather than scrapping for those higher CPCs, what can we do in other spaces that's sort of more appropriate for those types of products and those brands? So whether it's Amazon affiliates or kind of blogger engagement, things like that, where you're just, again, it's all based on the same principles. Can I get in front of the right audience? It's just they're in a different space on the internet. And sort of having that diversity of different options is the way that we're approaching it now. It's not one channel that's going to deliver everything. It's multiple channels that together combined are going to achieve the results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So speaking of multiple channels, do Amazon ads sync well with third-party applications in terms of tracking and all of that?
Well, so the beauty of Amazon is that particularly within sort of their more traditional sort of sponsored products, the ads within the search results, it's all tracked end to end. Everything's done within the Amazon ecosystem. Therefore, you don't need any other sort of third party applications to run those ads. You can see everything from your targeting through to impressions, clicks, etc., all the way through to lifetime value and repeat purchases. So that part of it, Amazon, all the data's there. I'm not saying it's easy to sort of understand and sort of analyze, because any Amazon seller will tell you that the back end systems with Amazon aren't particularly great. They're improving, but they're not great. And there are some good sort of options out there that you can plug in to understand the data once obviously the sales come through. But in terms of the other sort of tracking of the actual ads, you don't really need it within the platform. There are ad optimization technologies that you can use, and we use. So we obviously we're working with lots of different clients, therefore we need that kind of scale and efficiency. So we do use bid optimization technologies. The bit where the sort of tracking comes in and attribution is if you're driving sales from outside of Amazon into Amazon.
Yeah.
So
Even awareness, right?
Yeah.
To lead up to that original search in Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's some interesting things that Amazon are doing recently. So, this is still something that's within the Amazon platform, but they've started to add a new objective. So, obviously, everything historically has been, are you achieving the sale, and what's the return on the ads for that, on the ad spend? There's a new objective that they've put in there, which is based on engagement. So, it'd be sort of equivalent to your Facebook page view kind of metric. So has someone engaged with your product page or your storefront? And that's sort of looking at awareness and the start of a user journey into purchasing the product. Whereas previously that sort of mid or upper funnel element of advertising on Amazon has just been completely, invisible. You just don't know sort of what that level of engagement is really before that particular user comes down to buy the product. So that's something that's starting to come in. The other thing is then the Amazon have an attribution tool. It's very rudimentary right now. So you could argue it's sort of the equivalent of a UTM parameter within Google Analytics. Just append that onto the destination URL, and then add that into whether you're advertising on Amazon to drive into, whether you're advertising on Facebook to drive that into Amazon or elsewhere, you obviously just kind of append that variable onto the URL, and that will tell you where that sale came from. So it attributes it to the original external source. What it's not doing is then firing back information to that external ad platform. That would be amazing if it was there. And in sort of my utopian world, maybe one day that might happen. Amazon sharing data with Facebook, maybe not. But yes, you don't get that part of it, but you can certainly see within the Amazon platform where you're at. If you have sales from outside of Amazon, you'll be able to start to see that. I think, as I say, it's a very sort of rudimentary way of tracking, and it kind of works on a basic level as in yes, I can see that came from Facebook. But in terms of actually understanding first click to last click and the journey between that, none of that is there. I think over time, I'd want to see that come out, whether it's something that Amazon offers or whether they open up the platform for other vendors to actually offer that type of attribution. I don't know, but that would be my hope, is you start to see that level of sophistication across kind of the multiple click journey to sale.
Unfortunately, we have reached the end of our time here. So I do want to finish with our last question, which is our big takeaway from this episode. So if our listeners remember just one thing from this whole episode, what is the one thing that they can take away from this show that will help them accelerate their online businesses?
So I think when it comes down to Amazon specifically, it's to think of it as, the phrase I use is to invest to grow and to think long term about it. So we've talked about don't do short term tactics with reviews. Think more sustainably about your growth and not piling into Black Friday and things like that. It's consumer behavior shifting towards marketplaces and websites. There's different dynamics to the two of them, but I think a long-term approach where investing to grow for the long term is absolutely the right approach. Amazon's not a get-rich-quick thing, and if you think that way, then you're going to make the wrong decisions. Think long-term.
Awesome.
Unless you're Jeff Bezos.
You can do what you like.
Great. So thank you so much, Tom, for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you. Keith, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
It's definitely a really competitive space, so having some of these Amazon best practices in the bag can definitely help you in the upcoming holiday season. If you want to connect with Tom, you can follow him on LinkedIn or contact him through FordeBaker.com for an audit of your own Amazon page. In 2 weeks, we'll have Charles Chai in to talk to us about market research, mind mapping, and messaging techniques. He's the CEO of Mindcart AI, a marketing technology used to build out a very unique type of customer persona, a mind type rather than demographic or interest-based one. I'm really looking forward to picking his brain on all of the applications of this in our next episode. Make sure you're subscribed to the show so that you can stay on top of all the great episodes we have in store for you. So stay safe, and we'll catch you back here next time on Optily Radio.